Most Christians and Muslims will readily assert that those who reject their gods will suffer eternal damnation in hell after death. They claim that endless suffering and torture in a lake of fire is a just punishment for the finite crime of non-belief while alive on earth. First, we must recognize that the concept of hell doesn't even really appear in the Bible, at least not how people describe it today. Most Jews don't believe in hell as a place of eternal torture because the Torah has absolutely nothing to say on the subject. The Hebrew word Sheol often is mistranslated by Christians as hell, when in fact it simply means the pit or the grave. In addition, Christians often refer to Gehenna as hell, when in fact it was very much an actual location on earth outside of Jerusalem. Additional references to Tartarus or Hades are simply references to the Greek concept of the underworld, which predated the New Testament. The idea of eternal punishment after death in the New Testament is essentially the amalgamation of Jewish and Greek mythology, likely with some other influences. Numerous ancient cultures spanning the entire globe had a concept of an underworld, or a land of punishment and suffering for the wicked after death. It isn't surprising, considering that it is an easy way to force people to behave, and because humans buried their dead in the ground, it only followed that they would sink below the earth for punishment. Many cultures even consistently depict this underworld as full of fire and brimstone, which again is not surprising considering that volcanoes spew forth exactly that from the bowels of the earth when they erupt. Primitive men were simply trying to justify natural geological activity by hypothesizing what must be below the earth. The modern depiction of hell is largely a product of popular literary works such as Dante's Inferno or Milton's Paradise Lost. These bits of pop culture have ingrained themselves into the minds of believers such that they have become the iconography associated with the concept of hell, regardless of the fact that none of it actually represents what is in the Bible. Even if modern theists have a distorted view of what hell actually is, it wouldn't be an argument against the existence of hell to simply say that the popular version doesn't actually exist. Instead, I can make several valid philosophical arguments as to why hell doesn't make any logical sense. First, let's consider the unlikelihood of existence for any one individual person. In order to exist, an individual's parents had to have procreated at essentially the exact time that they did, such that the sperm and the egg which resulted in their existence met. A female has hundreds of eggs and a male produces millions of sperm in his life, and for the exact genetic combination to occur, which results in a given individual as a product of one specific sperm meeting one specific egg, the odds are simply astronomical. We can then extrapolate backwards for this to have occurred for each of your parents and their parents and so on. Now, granted, someone would exist, but for it to be any specific individual is extraordinarily unlikely. Given this, it simply does not follow that an omniscient deity would allow a person to be created with the full knowledge that he or she would choose not to believe in a god and thus be punished for eternity, for this simple and finite transgression. After all, if a person doesn't exist at all, if their soul doesn't ever exist, then they cannot be punished. It would have been far easier for a god to have never created such a person to begin with than to create them for the sole purpose of eternally torturing them. Additionally, since most Christians believe that the only requirement for admission to heaven is to believe in Jesus Christ, that means that plenty of vile people such as rapists and murderers will enter into heaven simply because they believed, while good and decent non-believers will suffer in hell for eternity. That is not rational justice. If what Christians claim to be true is actually the case, that means that the overwhelming majority of humans who are alive today and who have ever existed are burning eternally in hell. When we consider these arguments, it is easy to see why the concept of a hell is absurd. Christianity and Islam simply assimilated nearby cultural myths into their theology, myths based upon the desire for your enemies and those who don't believe as you do to be punished forever, even if they did not meet justice on earth, and based upon observation of natural geological activity to which they attributed invented meaning. So, when you're confronted by those who claim to be loving in the name of their deity, yet warn you of your impending eternal fate, simply laugh and tell them, hell? No, we won't go. I am Prototype Atheist. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, share with anyone else you think would be interested, and subscribe to my channel for future updates. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/prototypeatheist and on Twitter at protoatheist.